let's say we have twin brothers playing in front of their house, and there is a fatal accident right in front of the house. One of the brothers runs inside, calls 911. When the ambulance comes, he's there. He wants to see what's happening. He wants to help if there's any way that he can help. He turns around and sees his twin brother just passed out on the ground. Just freaks out. They had the same experience, but they identified it in different ways. The brother who was helpful, perhaps this is somebody who's going to be a doctor one day. He feels that he's done something. I brought the paramedics here. I can help. I can do something. The other one is life is so uncertain. Life scares me. So you see the difference. Or you can have twin fetuses that the parents are just not getting along. They're having financial problems. Terrible things are happening in the family, and one of them says, I can make a difference. I can make a difference. I need to be born. I'll get into this family and I'll make a difference. And the other one is like, why? I shouldn't even be born. Life is so uncertain. So we make these decisions without even realizing what these decisions are, and they become these core belief systems that everything generates from. All right. So as we get to be about 12, 13 years old, and this is the danger really, because children, especially the first 6 years of our lives, we essentially spend in a hypnotic trance. The reason is we have no real reasoning ability. We are inductive reasoners. So when we're told something, especially if something comes true, and I'll give you a little example, a very sad example from my life in a little bit to understand that, they don't have filters. And this is why I always say that there's only one thing as bad as abuse for a child. I mean, abuse is the worst thing, any sort of abuse. And the other thing that harms us more than anything in the world is hypocrisy. Because children have no filters. They know, even if they can't articulate, they know that they know. They know that there's problems in the household. They know that, mommy is not really what she says that she is, but there's so many layers. If they judge, then they have the programming that comes in, honor thy father and mother. It's just so many dimensions to it. And they don't have filters, and they can't really articulate what they're feeling. And so hypocrisy is very damaging to a child too, because they really are in a hypnotic trance. And so a lot of those years that we're growing up, our parents inadvertently say things to us, and what they're doing is they're influencing the way we feel about ourselves or the world or life in general. So you're getting a little bit more of an idea of how we can get so messed up. So once we get to be, from about 6 to 12, and then as we get to this age, we get something that's called the critical factor of the mind. And this is what psychologists call the ego. And this is this filter now that's going to separate the conscious mind from this subconscious mind. Now, the conscious mind is where we have our logic, intellect, reasoning powers. So as we get beyond those ages of 12 years old, we're able to reason things out. We're able to use logic to solve problems. We have more of our intellect. We're very ruled in the first 6 to 12 years of our life by our emotions, by our imagination, because that is the part of the mind that's very, very dominant. And truly, the first 6 years of our life, we really do live in a hypnotic trance, meaning that we are in a position where the subconscious is fully dominant during that period of time. So willpower. Okay, so here we are in the beginning of the year. Everybody's talking about, okay, I gotta go back to healthy eating, gotta get into the gym, gotta do all of these things, when you make your New Year's resolutions. And we're going to use our willpower as a way of changing. But this is here what happens is that willpower is a faculty of the conscious mind. Your conscious mind is roughly 12% of your total mind power. Your subconscious mind power is about 78% of your mind. So add that to your primitive mind, and you have literally this is the tip of the iceberg. And so what happens is, whenever you are going to use your willpower as a way of trying to change something, and that's why I always say get away from the word try. We did that in the mind module thing. You can't, because you are literally fighting a numbers game. you're fighting against 6 or 7. So let's say that James confided to me, and this is not true, I'm just making these things up, that she has a lot of fear and insecurity about being in front of people. And so she would get up one morning and she would say, okay, that's it. I'm getting over that. I'm going to get in front of people. I'm going to feel confident. I'm not going to have that, that feeling of that lack of self-confidence. And so she gets up and she has the best intentions. And then as the day goes by, you just kind of feel yourself wilting and whatever. So really, essentially, what James Ann would be doing is taking a rope, and we have, let's say, on the other side of this wall, besides an expired critter, that we have, let's say, a hole in the wall, and we have 6, I knew this was going to happen sooner or later. So let's say we have 6 or 7 women on the other side, or people that would be about her strength and size, pulling on this cord like a tug of war. As strong as this woman is, as strong as her intentions would be to change, what's going to happen? It's a numbers game. If you have 6 or 7 tugging at you on the other side. So do you understand why our New Year's resolutions don't work? We have this desire to change. We're going to try to change, but something in our subconscious mind does not agree with what we're doing. We have to get into the subconscious mind to make that change. And so let's talk a little bit about really what hypnosis is. Hypnosis is really the act of just getting the critical factor of the mind to just kind of step aside a little bit. And it really, you are always protected. The idea of somebody going into this kind of trance where you don't know what's happening to you is really just Hollywood. That's not what hypnosis is. Well, people will say, well, I could still hear your voice. I was like, well, did I give you a little karate punch, or did I give you a drug or knockout drops or something? Of course, you're not unconscious. Anybody here ever drive somewhere and you get somewhere and you go, how did I get here? I don't remember. You zone out. Okay, so anytime that we go into states of reverie or that we zone out, whenever we're doing something that we can do by rote, whether it's washing the dishes or ironing or something that you're brushing your teeth or something that you do, almost the unconscious takes over, and you zone out, then we really are in a trance state. We go into a trance state about a dozen times a day. This is just a natural state. So in our usual waking consciousness, the conscious mind is what's called beta state of consciousness. Like right now, as you're listening to me and you're analyzing what I'm saying and you're learning it and just weighing it out intellectually, you are using beta consciousness. And so your consciousness is in the dominant position and your subconscious mind most of the day is in the subordinate position. Your conscious mind essentially is going to reject a lot more information than it's going to accept. That's why I'm making the R capital. It's going to analyze everything that comes in to whether, did you start the food too? You did, good. Okay, so whether it is believable, acceptable, or true, okay? So it's going to analyze the information that's coming in. So if somebody tells you, Hillary, I really like that purple shirt you're wearing. You're not wearing a purple shirt. So it's just like, okay, whatever. She's a little nuts, or maybe she's colorblind or whatever. So information that comes in, and most of it is going to be, the higher percentage is going to be rejected because when this critical factor comes into play, it's really designed to lock in our programming. Because right or wrong, good or bad, positive or negative, your programming is you, and the integrity of it is going to be protected by the critical factor of the mind. This is why they have to do so much debriefing with people who have been in cults, because whatever they've been trained, whether it's right, wrong, good, positive, bad, horrible, that is them. So you have to do a lot of work to debrief and to reprogram people who've been programmed a certain way, because once you get to the point that the critical factor is in play, it's going to reject most of what it says. Okay, so on the other hand, about a dozen times a day, and it's usually when we're doing these things that become very second nature to us, these states of reverie, these are called the ultradian states. We spend most of our waking hours in a circadian rhythm of sleeping and wakefulness. But we have what are called the ultradian states about a dozen times a day. Subconscious mind automatically comes into play. Conscious mind kind of takes the back door. We're always protected. There's always a watcher inside of us. So this idea that you can hypnotize somebody and tell them, go, take your clothes off and go running down the street naked. If somebody wanted to do that, they would do it, but you can't make anybody do anything. That's the really wrong about hypnosis. So in this state, it's going to accept more than it rejects. Now, we go into these states, but we don't know how to use these states, so we get used by these states. We're very suggestible in these states, but let's think about usually what's going on. One of the ways that we go into a subconscious dynamic, subconscious dominant dynamic, is when we are under extreme stress or in an emergency situation or a state of shock. Now, we are anything but positive during those states. That's why it's very important that if somebody's having some sort of a trauma, that you want to be very calming to them, because they've actually done studies where if somebody's been burned and you get to them fast enough and you give them suggestions, you can keep the degrees of burning back. Like, what is it, the third degree is the worst or something like that. You can stop a first or second degree going into a third degree by using suggestion at that time. That's why I think more nurses, more EMTs should be trained in this, because when a person is in a state like that, in a state of shock, they are very suggestible. They're very much in that state. But what about the fact that we're going in these states a dozen times a day? Like some of you are listening to me, some of you might be already fantasizing about what you're going to do after 4 o'clock. So you're in these states of reverie, but most of the time, because we're really pretty much dominated by that overall environment of our subconscious programming, which most of us did not have ideal programming, just because most of our parents didn't have ideal programming and most of their parents didn't have ideal programming. So a lot of these times when we're in these states of reverie, we're not thinking, I am this magnificent soul capable of anything that I want to do. I have a wonderful body. I am affluent. I am creative. I am being prospered in all of my interests. What are we thinking? Life is a bitch and then you die. I'm getting older, I'm getting fatter, nobody loves me, I'm a failure. Isn't that what most people think? Most people were around, that's why we're more positive. We want to be around more positive people. This is the way most people think. So if they're going in a dozen times a day, the reason that they're not changing, even though there is always a moment and every day where you could really make a big change in your life, is because most of what you tell yourself and about life and about the world comes from this programming, and you are very unconscious about it. You have no way of really feeling conscious about it. And so you just go on blurting out the same negative things to yourself over and over. And then all you're really doing then is you're emphasizing. All right? So what hypnosis really does, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. There's really no such thing as my hypnotizing anybody. I've been in the field for over 25 years. I've never hypnotized a human being, because really all I can do is guide you into the state. When you work with another person in hypnosis, it's called hetero-hypnosis. When you work on yourself, it's called auto-hypnosis or self-hypnosis. And so all you're really doing is guiding somebody into that state. And this is why I really emphasize suggestion. I've been to so many hypnotherapy conferences. I was director of international development for the American Board of Hypnotherapy, but I have really met very few hypnotherapists that really understand suggestion. You need to understand how suggestion works. That's why I'm even emphasizing it in the mind module. And when we did that, it's very important, because it's really a different vernacular in the subconscious mind. It communicates in a different way. It's like trying to get up here and speak to you in Spanish. If you know a few words, you might pick up a few words, but basically if I give this whole lecture in Spanish, you wouldn't get much out of it. And so most of the ways that we tell our subconscious that we want to change is in a way that it's not going to galvanize it into any change. So with the state of hypnosis, in the early things, what you guys are learning a little bit about and what you'll be doing in the first certification program is really understanding how you get past that critical factor of the mind and working with these knowns in a way that can galvanize change. Like the higher, the ones that are not deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained, you can help a person make changes.